Hello everybody. It's been a day since I put the resin in the little lettering, and it looks absolutely fucking brilliant is what I want to be able to say, but unfortunately I can't, because I have come across an issue which actually stems from this. Now you may remember on the previous on a previous video clip I'd mentioned that hadn't dried. A bit of resin that I'd put on there just hadn't dried, and it had been like 2 days, and it should be dry in about 6 hours ish, and then solid in 24. Well, it's been 2 days since I mentioned that this was still wet, and it's still tacky. It's not dried, or the technical term, it hasn't cured. And unfortunately, my lettering has done a very similar thing, except for it almost looks like oil in water. That's kind of the effect that that I'm seeing. And at first I couldn't understand why, but that's where this has come in very, very useful, because that baffled me as to why that hasn't dried when it really should have done. But then it occurred to me, well, that came from excess. I was doing one of my projects and that was left over, so I mixed it in with some gold. I mixed a load of gold in it and poured it into there, and it's not dried. But the rest of that batch of resin did dry. So that's then made me think, okay, maybe it's to do with the ratio of resin, hardener and colour. So on that one, there wasn't a lot of resin, but I did put a lot of colour in it. So it's possible that that's why that hasn't dried, because like I said, the rest of the resin did, that I used on another project. Now, for the lettering that I spent some time doing yesterday, you may remember me saying that I've made a small batch. Now, because this hasn't worked, I've been doing a bit of research, and I've been thinking about that test piece and other things, and found out that apparently there is kind of like a minimum quantity of resin and hardener that you should mix together, because the two of them together create a chemical reaction, which is basically it's a heat reaction, and the more of each there is, the higher the temperature of that reaction, and the less there is, the lower the temperature of that reaction. So they don't mix together properly, and they also don't, the hardener can't take effect. But also, if you remember, I did a lesser amount, but still put quite a bit of colour in it, so, and I had to make a bit of extra. And that bit extra that I made was very much not a lot of resin, not a lot of hardener, but actually quite a lot of colour. So the percentages of each, I believe, is what has caused me to have this particular issue, and I will show it in a moment. But what it's led me to have to do is I'm going to have to take it all off. Because there's no way to fix it. I can't just mix up some extra hardener and put it on. It won't work. I can't heat it up to do it. It won't work. The chemical reaction isn't there for it to work. So unfortunately, it's annoying, but all of the resin mixtures I'd done before yesterday was 20 ml of resin, 20 ml of hardener, and that amount works. Now that amount with a bit of colouring works, because I've used it a few times, it works. But 10ml of each hasn't worked, and 10ml of each with quite a bit of colouring definitely hasn't worked. So I have no choice other than to take the resin out, because it is still tacky and it's liquidy, it looks shit. But it's one of those things that, yes, it's fucking annoying, but I've learnt something, and it's something that I didn't think of before, I didn't know of before. And of all of the mixtures that I'd done, and having excess, which I've decided I'm going to start pouring my excesses into these glass jars and just see how the colours look. Mix it with colour and then pouring them there. I'm doing one with the black that's on its side. Yeah, so when I'd been doing my previous mixtures and having excess left over and being a bit annoyed about that, apart from the fact that I could test a few different colours, I was always wanting to try and mix in a lesser amount. But having mixed a lesser amount, I now know what that does, and it fucks things up. So, right, I'm going to try and show you in a sec what it's done to the actual piece of work. Okay, so at first look, it doesn't look too bad, but as I've done on previous, once you start actually having a closer look, you can see how bad the finish is. Now the finish should actually be a flat, shiny, clear layer. Okay, there's an R coming up here, this R. Look at how that R is. It's a lot clearer, or the bottom part of that E, than the F. So it's not mixing right. You see what I mean about it? It kind of looks like an oil slick. Now it would appear that it's not mixed right, and looks shit, but it's been about 24 hours since I applied this, so this lot, all of this should be solid, and it ain't. It's not even close to being solid. Now the other piece that I'd been working on, this one, is basically, it's gone exactly the same, and I mean it's even gone all the way through the wood. So unfortunately I have no choice other than to try and take the resin out. Now there's a few ways that I could try and do it. I could try scraping it out, that's one possibility. Could try soaking it up with a sponge. It's not going to work very well though, because it's even though it hasn't dried, it's not like a watery liquid. It's not going to soak into a sponge, I don't think. Yeah. So the way I'm actually going to try and do it is, I'm going to try and syringe out as much of it as I possibly can, and unfortunately all of the resin, all of this, it's all a waste now, which is, it's a bit annoying, but it's part of the learning process. Interestingly, having done the research this morning, so I'll move the camera so you can see as I'm trying to do this. As I was doing the research today about why this hasn't dried and stuff like that, I came across a video that said how to fix resin that isn't drying, and it was a lot like with how this one was, where I mentioned about how I scraped it off, and it turns out that scraping it off and sanding it back was the right thing to do on that when I had an excess and it wasn't a good layer. So yeah. Now excuse me, when I've got some cash flow coming in, I will need to get some more resin and hardener, because I've used about half a bottle so far, but let's see if this is actually going to, I don't know if this is going to pull anything up or not. The resin might be too thick. Yeah, it's not quite pulling anything up. Thought that might be. Okay. Let's see if it'll work in somewhere where it can. No. Bollocks. Right, okay, well that means I'm going to have to try and scrape it out. Shit. Oh dear. It's a good job. I bought a load of fucking lollipop sticks. But before I do go for that, I can't imagine that the sponge is going to soak it up at all. No, not soaked it up at all. Moved it. Yeah, okay. I think I'll be better off trying to scrape it out. I mean, the thing is, because it's not gone hard already, it'd suggest to me that it's not going to go hard at all. Not unless it's probably given fucking years to go hard, but there's a good chance that I'm going to end up needing to fucking sand this down again, which is going to be very frustrating, I'm afraid. We'll see. It all depends on how the finish is going to be, or how much of a mess I'm going to make doing this. And so far the answer is lots of mess, because it's stringy. I mean, I could just try wiping it all up with a tissue, but it'll just spread it, and I don't want to spread it, at least as little as fucking possible. It might work. No, it is just spread a little bit too much. Tissue, which is where my phone is sitting. Yeah, I was quite pleased with how this application had gone, but last night when I was checking on it, I mean, I checked on it and it looked a bit shit, and I thought, well, I'll give it some more time because it might still sort of level itself out, sort itself out. And then when I checked it about 3 hours after that and it hadn't done a thing, I was like, okay, that's going to be a problem. I left it till today and it was exactly the same. So it was like, yeah, okay, that's going to need taking off. And I say, there's nothing I can do to fix it other than to remove it, which is annoying. But I suppose I'm going to learn how to learn what it's like to try and remove it in this situation. I mean, part of me does wish I'd just fucking done a bigger batch, because if you remember, I was saying I'm not sure if there was enough sort of resin going onto the letters to for gravity to spread it, which could still be true, but also the resin not being the right consistency potentially would also be a big factor. But I can see that this is going to end up looking a lot fucking worse, before it starts looking better, because it's going to take some fucking it's going to take some work to clean all of this shit up. I mean, basically what I'm going to try and do here is a bit of a rough clean to get as much out as I can, and then I'll go with a slightly more detailed clean. And I've just had an idea as well, cotton buds might work with this, also might not, but this at the moment seems to be pulling most of it out all right. I think one of the big difficulties with this though will be that so I'm going to have to try and get as much resin out of there as possible, because I'm going to need to sand in between all the letters, which I'd done by hand anyway, sort of done a light sanding after I'd cleaned it, but I am going to need to sand it again. I mean, it's possible I might be able to use something like the furniture stripper that I used anyway. That might help on this, I don't know. We'll just have to see how we get on. At the end of the day, we're talking, messing about with chemicals that I've never used before, and I've no idea what mixing one chemical with another might do, i.e. the furniture stripper with a resin. I must admit, I was hoping to have these finished by this Friday. So today's Wednesday. Yeah, I was hoping to have these all finished by Friday. I don't think they will be now, because if these had gone right and they'd have dried up today, then I'd have been sanding the other pieces down and then applying some varnish to them. But yeah, this could take some time. I mean, it's basically added to a minimum 24 hours, because when I do get to put the resin back in, that's going to take 24 hours to dry. But obviously I've got to get it ready to have the resin put back in, which is going to take some time. And one thing I will say is, when it comes to watching resin videos on YouTube and stuff like that, there's not many out there that show about these kind of fuck-ups, not unless you're just looking for them. Normally it's like, hey, I'm going to make this thing, and then bosh, there you go, it's brilliant. Or they might leave out just how many times and they have to sand down a piece of work with the resin on, going down all the grades of the resin, not the resin, of the sanding sheets. Oh shit. I'm definitely glad though that I've got a box of these gloves. Fit me much better, much nicer to wear. I get a more feel of what I'm doing, and they're not particularly expensive, so throwing them away is a lot better than reusing them. See now, this is where, if this had worked properly, there would have been no way of me being able to pull all of this out. I mean, within sort of 20, 40, maybe an hour of applying it, yeah. After that, no. Especially not 24 hours after that. Ooh, I know what might pick this stuff up. Wire wool. I might try that. It might be easier than anything else, because it's very good at like when I've been stripping something, it's very good at going claggy and collecting all the shit, so it might work on this. I mean, it also might not, but I think it'd be worth a try. Honestly, it's one of those things. I was very disappointed with myself last night that this hadn't worked. But just like with me other projects, it's all part of learning, isn't it? And at the end of the day, you learn more from mistakes than you do from successes. Especially when you're effectively self-teaching, which is what I'm doing. Really sticky fingers. I wouldn't say frustrating, but it's not frustrating. I haven't got a lot of time to spend on doing this today, because today's the day that my brother Steve comes round, which is normally about 6 o'clock, so I've got probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe, until he's coming round. And also I want to have a nap before he does come round, so that I'm not knackered all evening. I did not have a good night's sleep last night. Woke up fucking absolutely choking and gasping for breath. I can only guess that I must have fallen asleep laying on my back and was choking on something. I don't know if it was my own tongue or whether I'd coughed something up. I've no idea, but when I woke up I thought I was fucking dying. It took me quite some time to get my to be able to breathe, and then to calm down, and then to be able to actually fucking relax, and then be able to get back to sleep. It was not a pleasant experience. It's interesting, there's parts of this, like this bit, that's kind of gone a little bit harder, which is odd. But that's about the only piece that I've come across that's done that. I mean, out 1 letter out of what, 30? Yeah, it's not a good ratio. All the G's a bit similar. And this is where this is where I put the extra stuff. I've mixed the extra batch. So maybe the extra batch wasn't too bad, but because it's on top of a shit batch, even if the top hardens, the underneath is not going to. And that's why you can't just like put more hardener on it now to firm it up. It just won't work. I'm going to try a couple of things here. I need to get me a blue sheet. So I'm going to try. I'm going to try just wiping it off with a cloth, with a paper towel. Which I would expect it to tear up said paper towel, which it kind of is doing. And it isn't really picking anything up. Okay, right, so that plant is out the window. Right. Where's my wire wool? I think it's in that one. Nope. If it's not in that one, which one is it fucking in? Oh dear. Right. I've got fine wire wool, but let's try coarse wire wool first. I'll have to have a proper good clean up after this. Now normally I would potentially like put something on here, but I just want to go with the wire wool on its own just to see if I can get it to pick up as much of the resin as possible, which it is kind of doing. I mean, I'm leaving a lot of metal on the wood, but I'm okay with that for now. It seems to be getting sort of the excess off the top because I'm kind of going over it a bit rough. I'm not getting in the gap, so I'll get the excess off the top first. This is definitely going to end up looking a hell of a lot worse before it looks better. That's for fucking certain. Alright. Let's see if we can try and get in the letters a bit. Too bad. I think what I'll probably do is I'll go around it like this and then perhaps try a finer wire wool over again. I'm struggling now with my hand now going numb, hurting and going numb. Obviously I haven't applied any kind of cleaner onto this yet either. I want to try and get as much off as I can before I try doing anything like the furniture varnish remover, what's it called, white spirits. I don't know if white spirits had touched this or not. I really don't know. But one thing I will say, having to go through this particular process, which is an absolute fucking ball ache, as well as learning from mistakes, I don't want to have to do this again. And I've got another fucking board to do it to already, but I do not want to have to go through this process again, because this is a ball ache. I'd rather have too much resin and throw some away than have to do this again. The thing is, there was no indication when I was applying the resin. There was no indication that anything was going to be wrong. Or if there was, it wasn't something that I spotted. I suppose this serves me right for thinking that this would be a dead easy fucking task. Yeah, just strip the wood, fill it with resin, piece of piss. Probably is if you know how to do it properly. Oh. This is a right ball ache. To be fair though, the wire wool is working. I mean, it's a bit time consuming, and then it's hurting me, but it is working. The thing is, there is going to be there's still a lot of cleaning to do on this, because although yes, this wire wool is working, it is leaving a hell of a lot of metal on there. Now, the finer wire wool, I wouldn't expect to do that, but because this is dropping fucking metal everywhere anyway. But you can hear how tacky it is. thing is, it's not like I'm going to be able to leave this to dry either and then sand it off, because it isn't going to dry. I'm just wondering whether it might be worth me, when I use the finer wire wool, whether it might be worth me applying something like the furniture stripper and seeing if it does pick it up. You know what? I will change gloves because they are sticking to me. Oh. So I hope I can still get these gloves on, even with a slightly sweaty hand. I mean, for how much of a mess I was expecting to make in taking the resin off, it's actually not looking anywhere near as fucking bad as I was expecting. Let's put it this way, it's probably tidier than the first resin application I did on the private plate. If you get the fingers in the right holes, don't you? Right, so okay, so we'll finish stripping there. There should be a dish for there. Some of the furniture stripper in. Oh. Like I said, I don't know if the furniture stripper will work, but I just feel it's worth trying. Oh. I think even if this does work, I'm still going to need to clean it afterwards with the white spirit. So I've basically got to create myself a brand new base to apply the resin to. I'm going to be quite liberal with this, really. Oh, Dave, you're a knobhead. If you're going to apply furniture remover, make sure you're not applying fucking oil instead. You fucking bellend. Well, now I need to fucking apply the furniture fucking remover to get the fucking oil off. What a cock. I mean, to be fair, the oil's actually... The oil might work. As far as cleaning it goes. I mean, if you think about the kitchen table that I did, once I'd stripped it down and then sanded it and done everything, I did have to apply a coat of oil to neutralise the wood. It kind of almost looks like it is fucking working. Either that or it's just because it's an oil, it's making everything a bit shiny rather than cleaning it. Yeah, it is. Okay. Now that, I must admit, is a mistake that has pissed me off. That's not the kind of mistake I should be making, really. Now, normally the furniture stripper I would actually put into a dish, but the dish I fucking would have used, I've put oil in, so there's no point putting it in that. I really should be wearing a mask as well, and glasses in case I splash any. And I should be wearing safer gloves. Right, okay, I've put that on there, so I'm going to leave that there for a few minutes because I need to let that soak in and just do its work its magic. I need to be wearing a more protective pair of gloves for the furniture stripper. Yes, I don't think these are really protect against it. So I'm kind of going to sort of do that, and yeah, I'll be back in a few.